I always thought nothing in this world could surprise me anymore. 52 years riding with the Iron Serpent's MC will sand the wonder right out of a man. You see enough blood, asphalt, and broken trust, and your heart turns into something like road gravel, sharp in places, but mostly just scattered. But that morning proved I still had one piece left that could shatter. I rolled back into town just after sunrise, pipes rumbling like distant thunder as I pulled into my yard. Dust from 3 states still clung to my cut. My back ached from miles of unforgiving highway, and all I wanted was a hot shower in the familiar sight of my garage, my sanctuary, my workshop, the one place the world couldn't touch. Except it already had. The garage door was open, wide open, and the silence inside was too damn loud. My boots slowed as I stepped in. The air felt wrong, empty, hollow in a way that made my pulse thicken. My bikes, were gone. 7 custom Harleys, each with a story burned into their frames. One built with my brother before he died in a knife fight behind a roadhouse in '98. One painted by my wife's own hands during the chemo days when she still thought she'd beat the cancer. And the crown jewel, a matte black shovelhead I rebuilt from bare bones after my first crash. The one that should have killed me, all gone, vanished. The world tilted hard. The room kept spinning long after I stopped moving. I gripped the door frame like I needed it to keep from falling through the floor. Whoever took them knew what they were doing. No broken lock, no tire marks, no mess. Someone with access, someone I trusted. I didn't have long to wonder. The universe sent me the answer with the small crunch of footsteps behind me. "Dad, you're home early." Her voice always hit a soft place in me, no matter how battle-scarred I'd become. My daughter, Rachel, 27, stubborn as a mule, smart as hell, too much of her mother in her eyes for me to ever stay mad long. But the way she stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight, avoiding my stare, told me I was about to hear something I wouldn't like. "Where are the bikes?" I asked, surprised at how calm I sounded. My voice usually carried steel. This came out more like ash. She swallowed. "I sold them." A dead pause swallowed the world whole. My breath left me in one sharp exhale like someone punched it out. "Come again?" "I sold them," she repeated, pushing the words out fast, like ripping off a bandage that stuck to raw skin. "I needed the money." "Money? Money?" Those bikes were worth more than most people's houses. Hell, collectors had been trying to pry them from me for years. "How much?" I asked, though a part of me already knew the answer wasn't going to make sense. She flinched. $1. The concrete under my boots could have cracked for all I cared. My vision tunneled, the edges going hot and sharp. $1? My voice came out low, gravelly, dangerous. "You sold 7 custom Harleys? My life's damn work for $1? Her eyes filled with guilt and something else. Anger, but not at the bikes. At me. "You left me with nothing," she snapped. "Nothing, Dad. When Mom died, I thought you'd set something aside, something to help. But there was no will. No money. You disappeared on the road for months like it didn't matter. I had bills. I had a mortgage. I had everything on my shoulders alone." I stared at her, cold and stunned. "Your mother left you a will." She froze. "No, she didn't." "Yes," I said, stepping closer, heart pounding with a rage I hadn't felt in years. "She did. She wrote it before she passed. I sat beside her when she signed it. You were supposed to inherit enough to never worry about a damn thing." Her face paled. Confusion twisted with disbelief. "Then, where is it?" That's when another truth hit me. Heavy, foul, undeniable. Someone hid it, someone with access, someone who wanted control, someone who knew Rachel would be vulnerable without it. My late wife's sister, Linda, tight-smiled, money-hungry, always circling like a vulture. She'd handled the paperwork after the funeral. She insisted it was easier that way. I'd been too buried in grief to fight her at the time. But now it all made sense. Rachel looked at me like a storm was forming behind her eyes. "Dad, what aren't you telling me?" "I'm telling you," I said quietly, "that someone played you. Played us both." She shook her head, tears sharp on her cheeks. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." For the first time since stepping foot into the garage, the anger inside me shifted. Not at her, but at the hands that pushed her to this point. My daughter wasn't the enemy. She was the collateral damage. Still, the cut she left in me throbbed deep. "Who'd you sell them to?" I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "A collector, some guy named Deacon Marsh." The name hit like a fist. Marsh was no simple collector. He had ties to the Black Reapers, a rival crew with a long memory and a body count to match. Of course, he'd want my bikes. He'd also know exactly what they were worth. $1 damn. That meant he wasn't buying the machines. He was buying leverage. I took a slow breath, letting the anger steady into something colder, something useful, something I hadn't felt in a long time. "All right," I said, voice dropping into the graveled calm of a man who's already chosen the road he'll ride. "We're going to get to the bottom of this. The will, the bikes, all of it." Rachel wiped her eyes. "Dad, what are you going to do?" I looked at the empty garage, at the ghosts of chrome and steel that once lived there. "What I've always done," I murmured. "Handle my damn business. And vengeance." Vengeance was already warming up the engine. The sun hadn't climbed far when I rolled out of the driveway on my backup bike, a beat-up Softdale that ran hotter than hell and rattled like an old smoker's lungs. It wasn't one of my prized builds, but it was enough to get me moving, enough to keep my thoughts from tearing me open while the road carried me forward. Rachel watched me leave from the porch. Her face was a storm of guilt and confusion, a kid trying to make sense of a world that had been carved up behind her back. I wanted to tell her everything would be all right, but lies never sat right on my tongue, and she'd had enough lies shoved down her throat already. So I gave her a nod, a promise, not of peace, but of action. The wind gnawed at me as I hit Highway 27, pushing past the empty farmland that looked as tired as the people who tried to live off it. My thoughts bounced between my daughter and my dead wife, between the missing will and the man now holding my collection hostage for a damn dollar. Deacon Marsh, collector, smuggler, parasite. A man who shook hands with devils and kept records of every soul he bought or broke. But before I could deal with Marsh, I had to know how deep this betrayal went, and that meant digging into the truth my wife left behind, and the truth someone had buried. I rode to the one place I didn't want to go, the lawyer's office. Raymond Kane had been the Serpent's unofficial legal shield for 20 years. He knew how to keep us out of prison, how to shuffle paperwork without leaving fingerprints, how to bury problems deeper than coffins. He also knew my wife, knew her better than most. She trusted him, which meant if something was amiss, he'd smell it. The office was tucked behind a pharmacy in a strip mall, like a secret he didn't want the world to notice. I walked in, the bell over the door chiming like a cheap motel alarm. His secretary, Marlene, a chain-smoking wraith who lived off nicotine and bitterness, looked up with mascara-smudged eyes. "Oh," she groaned, "it's you." "Good morning to you too, sunshine," I muttered. "You tracking dirt onto my floor again?" she snapped, waving her cigarette like a wand, trying to cast a spell that would make me disappear. Ray's in his office. I pushed through the frosted glass door marked Kane and Associates, though I'd never met a single associate in my life. Kane sat behind his desk, a bald man in a cheap suit with whiskey eyes and a stack of overdue files leaning at a dangerous angle. He looked up. Jesus Christ. Look what the desert spit out. "Morning, Ray." He leaned back. "You don't show up unless something's burning." "It is," I said. "My daughter sold my bikes." His eyebrows shot up. "Those customs? The ones collectors joke about selling their kidneys for?" "Those?" I said flatly. "What the hell did she do that for?" "Because she thought she had nothing. Thought her mother left her nothing." I paused. "Ray, she never got the will." He blinked, then rubbed his temples like a headache had just crawled into his skull. "That's not possible. I filed it. I remember filing it." "Well, it never reached her." The room went quiet. Outside, a delivery truck groaned by. Inside, something darker settled. "Who picked up the paperwork after my wife passed?" I asked. Ray didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened a drawer, rummaged through files, then pulled one out with my wife's name on it. His fingers hesitated as he flipped through. Then his jaw hardened. "Linda," he said. That single name carried enough venom to poison a river. My wife's sister, manipulator, martyr when it suited her, monster when no one watched. "She insisted," Ray continued. "Said it was easier for the family if she handled the documents. I didn't argue. You weren't in the best shape." He wasn't wrong. Grief had me on my knees back then, and I wasn't too proud to admit it. Ray looked up, guilt bleeding into his face. "I should have double-checked. Should have sent copies to your daughter directly. But Linda said she already had everything taken care of. And she didn't." "No," he said. "She buried it." My fists curled tight enough to make old scars throb. "Ray, I need copies," I said. "Everything you have." He nodded. "I'll print them now." As he worked the copier, I stared at the wall behind him, a framed certificate boasting his years in law. It struck me how useless the law could be when a single corrupt hand could twist it into a weapon. When he returned, he handed me a folder stuffed with papers, legal filings, copies of signatures, the full will. I didn't open it. I already knew what it said. My wife had been a woman who loved fiercely. She'd never leave her daughter with nothing. Thanks, Ray. He caught my arm before I turned to leave. There's another thing you should know. Marsh, Deacon Marsh, he's been sniffing around your affairs for months, asking about the bikes, about you. Someone tipped him off. My blood went cold. So Linda gives him access to Rachel and he buys my collection for $1, I said slowly. That's not a sale, that's a setup. Ray nodded grimly. Be careful. Marsh doesn't play fair. And Linda's got friends in places she shouldn't. I smirked. So do I. The ride to my next destination felt heavier. Every mile carried the weight of a truth I hadn't been ready to face. My wife had trusted the wrong person, and that person had poisoned my daughter's life out of greed. But before I could confront Linda, I needed intel. Real intel. The kind you don't get from lawyers or paperwork. So I headed to the Serpent's clubhouse. The old warehouse sat behind a junkyard, patched with tin roofs and graffiti, loud even when silent. My brothers lounged outside, tattoos, scars, leather, and the permanent scowl of men who've buried more friends than they cared to count. Tank noticed me first, rising from his chair like a mountain waking up. Brother, he said, voice gravel and smoke. Didn't expect you back yet. Didn't expect a lot of things, I replied. He studied my face for a second. Something's wrong. Yeah, someone stole my bikes. Then I learned Rachel sold them, and I found out Linda hid the will. Tank let out a long whistle. Damn, you need help? Not yet, I said, but I do need information. You heard anything about Marsh lately? A few of the boys murmured. Tank crossed his arms. Marsh picked up a new shipment last week. He said, rare bikes, custom jobs. Been bragging he's got something that'll piss off the Serpents. My jaw flexed. Yeah, my collection. Tank nodded slowly. Then what's the plan? First, I said, I confront Linda. And after that, I swung a leg off the bike, boots hitting gravel with a dull thud. After that, I said, voice darkening, I go get my damn machines back. I rode toward Linda's place as the sun dipped low, turning the sky blood orange. The heat of the day pressed against my skin, but inside I felt cold. Focused, ready. She thought she could bury the will, erase my wife's voice, turn my daughter into a pawn. But she forgot something important. I wasn't dead yet, and I don't let betrayal go unpaid. Tonight, I'd get answers. Tomorrow, vengeance would ride with me. I always hated the suburbs. Too clean, too fake, too damn quiet. A place where neighbors watered lawns at 6 sharp and pretended their secrets didn't rot behind every closed curtain. Everything about it felt like a lie, stitched together with white fences and passive-aggressive greetings. Linda lived in the heart of that plastic paradise. A 2-story house with beige siding, trimmed hedges, and a driveway that screamed, I care too much about what strangers think. The kind of place my wife never felt comfortable visiting, even when she was still alive. I parked my Softail across the street, engine ticking as it cooled. Every window in Linda's house glowed warm with lamplight. Shadows crossed behind them, her moving around, probably sipping that peppermint tea she claimed soothed her nerves. Funny, coming from a woman who caused more tension than she ever relieved. I walked up the driveway. Gravel shifted under my boots, like the ground itself was uneasy. I knocked. Not hard, but with the certainty of a man who won't be ignored. She opened the door with a smile that died halfway when she saw me. Oh, she said, voice pinched like she'd bitten into something sour. You're back. Yeah, I said. Mind if I come in? She hesitated. That was all I needed to know. Guilt sat somewhere behind those painted eyes. But she stepped aside anyway. The house smelled like lavender candles and dishonesty. Tea? She offered. No, I said, stepping deeper inside. I'm here for answers. She crossed her arms, mask cracking. I don't know what you think I've done now. Cut the shit, Linda, I interrupted. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried years of pent-up suspicion. Where's my wife's will? Her face drained of color, just a flicker, but it was enough. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I said, stepping closer. You do? Ray told me you picked up the paperwork. You said you'd deliver everything to Rachel. She swallowed. Hard. I didn't think she was ready, she said. Your daughter was fragile. Emotional. She was grieving her mother, I snapped. And instead of helping, you kept her inheritance buried. Her lips tightened. You weren't exactly Father of the Year during that time. Someone had to make choices. I leaned in. You didn't make choices. You stole security from her. You made her believe she had nothing. She sold my bikes for a damn $1 because of you. That hit her. Not because she cared about me. She never did. but because now her actions had consequences outside her control. I did what I thought was best, she whispered, but the lie sagged under its own weight. No, I said. You did what benefited you. Her eyes flickered, calculating. Always calculating. Fine, she sighed. Yes, I kept the will, but I wasn't stealing. I was protecting the estate. Protecting it from who? Her? I growled. She was owed every cent, and you let her drown. She took a step back. You don't understand. Make me understand. Her hands trembled. Your wife. She trusted me. She told me you weren't stable after she died, that you'd make reckless decisions. She asked me to guide Rachel, to keep things safe. Bullshit, I said. My wife trusted you with paperwork, not with her daughter's future. Linda's mask cracked. Finally, her voice hardened. Fine, the money was tied up. I borrowed some. My fists tightened. How much? She didn't answer, and that silence told me everything. Jesus Christ, I whispered. You drained her inheritance. Panic flashed across her face. But I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. I didn't expect Rachel to go sell things. I thought she'd wait. She waited 6 damn years, I said. She thought her mother died, leaving her nothing, and you let her believe that. Her breathing grew shallow. You can't prove anything. I reached into my vest and pulled out the folder Ray gave me. I tossed it on the table, papers spilled like dead leaves. I don't need to prove it, I said. The will proves itself. She stared at it, face gray, fear thick in her eyes. But fear of what? Shame? Consequences? Or me? Before I could press further, her phone buzzed on the counter. She flinched. Too much. Too fast. I grabbed it before she could. The caller ID made my blood run cold. Deacon Marsh. Well, I muttered. That's interesting. Linda lunged for the phone. I held it out of reach. What's Marsh want with you? I asked. Her panic turned feral. Give me that! No. I swiped to answer and put it on speaker. A rough voice filled the room. You better not be getting cold feet, Linda. The old man's back in town and things are about to get messy. Remember our deal. Linda froze. Marsh continued. You keep the daughter desperate, I keep the bikes. Everybody gets paid. Don't screw this up. I spoke, voice low and lethal. Marsh. A pause. Then, well, shit. You and me need to talk, I said. I don't think so, he replied. But feel free to come find me. I'll be waiting. The line went dead. I turned to Linda. So you teamed up with Marsh? She shook her head frantically. It wasn't like that. He pressured me. He said he could help manage the funds, get me out of debt. You put my daughter in his crosshairs, I said. You put me in them. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't mean. I don't care what you meant. This ends tonight. She backed up until her spine hit the wall. What are you going to do? I'm going to get my bikes, I said. And you're going to fix what you broke. I can't. You will, I said. You're going to write Rachel a full confession, every damn detail, and you're going to hand over every document you stole. Fear shook her voice. And if I don't? I leaned in close enough for her to see every line, age, and pain carved into my face. Then you'll wish Marsh got to you first. An hour later, with a confession in hand and copies of everything she had stashed away, I left the house. I didn't yell, didn't threaten again, didn't touch her. I didn't need to. Some truths carved deeper than fists ever could. The night air hit me as I walked to my bike, a little colder, a little sharper. The moon hung low like an old witness to all the wrongs people do for greed. I fired the engine. Marsh wanted a meeting? Fine. He'd get more than he bargained for. The road ahead stretched long and dark, but I wasn't riding blind anymore. I had the truth. I had purpose. I had Fury riding shotgun. And Deacon Marsh had something that belonged to me. Tonight, I'd take back what he stole. Chrome, steel, pride, and legacy. Even if I had to tear down his whole damn empire to do it. Some nights carry a different kind of silence. The kind that sits on your shoulders, heavy and knowing, like it's waiting to see what kind of man you'll be when the sun finally decides to rise. That was the silence riding with me as I cut across county lines toward Deacon Marsh's warehouse. The Softail's engine roared under me, but the world around us felt muted, distant, like the universe was holding its breath. The place wasn't hard to find. Marsh never hid anything he was proud of. His compound sat on the edge of an abandoned industrial park. Rusted fences, busted streetlights, weeds pushing through cracked concrete like nature trying to swallow the place whole. Several blacked-out transport trucks lined the lot, engines off, but their hoods still warm. He was expecting trouble, maybe even hoping for it. I killed my engine, let the night settle. The air smelled of oil, rust, and bad intentions. Before I reached the front gate, a man stepped out from behind a shipping container. Big guy, tattoos crawling up his neck, wearing the skull patch of Marsh's hired trash. "You lost, old man?" he growled. I stepped forward. Not even close. He smirked and lifted his pistol. I moved faster. One step, one twist, one crack. His wrist snapped like a dry branch. The gun dropped. He dropped right after it. I kept walking. The rest of Marsh's guards didn't take long to show. 4 men circled me on the lot, armed, pissed, ready to make their employer proud. One spoke. "You think you're walking out of here with those bikes?" "No," I said. "I know I am." They charged. And for a moment, the world turned into a blur of fists and steel. The first guy swung a bat. I ducked and drove an elbow into his ribs, felt the breath leave him. Another lunged with a knife. I grabbed his wrist, slammed it into a shipping container, blade clattering to the ground. A third tackled me, but age doesn't dull instinct. I twisted, sending him face first onto the gravel. The last guy hesitated. Too young, too scared. More boy than man. "Kid," I warned, "walk away." He did. Smartest move he'd ever make. When the dust settled, the only sound was my breathing, and the faint hum of generators inside the warehouse. Time to finish this. The warehouse door groaned open as I shoved it. Lights flickered awake, revealing rows of crates, tools, and trophies mounted on the walls. Marsh treated his place like a museum of everything he'd stolen or bought with other people's ruin. But none of it mattered, because there they were, my bikes, my entire collection lined up under hanging lights like prisoners awaiting judgment. Chrome gleamed beneath layers of dust and fingerprints. Each machine carried a piece of my history, my blood, my scars. Seeing them all together again felt like getting punched in the chest. Hard. "You like the display?" Marsh's voice crept from the shadows. He stepped forward, a tall man with slick hair, expensive boots, and the oily confidence of someone who thought money could buy immunity from consequences. "I figured you'd come sooner or later," he said. "Sentimental types always do." "You stole from me," I said. "I bought from your daughter." "For $1. He smirked. "Hey, a deal's a deal." She signed the papers, legal as it gets. I walked toward him, slow and steady. "You manipulated her. You used Linda. You knew damn well she thought she had nothing." He shrugged. "Not my problem. Desperate people make desperate choices. I just provide opportunities. She didn't owe you anything." "But you did," he said, eyes narrowing. "You and your little club made enemies years before you grew old and slow. I figured this collection would make a good retirement gift." I stopped a foot away from him. "You picked the wrong man to piss off." "And you came alone," he countered. Not very smart. I let a small, cold smile touch my lips. "Look again." He frowned. Then he heard it. The rumble. Dozens of engines in the distance, rolling closer, louder, shaking the rust off the walls. The iron serpents weren't subtle, and they weren't quiet. They rode like a storm with chrome and thunder under their boots. Marsh's calm cracked. "You brought your whole damn club?" "No," I said. "They brought themselves." "Oh." The warehouse doors burst open as Tank led the pack inside. The look on Marsh's face wilted like a dying plant. "Now," I said, stepping toward him, "about my bikes." He backed up. "We can negotiate. We're past that." "You can't kill me," he spat. "You do, and every authority in 3 counties will be crawling up your ass." "I don't need to kill you," I said. "I just need what's mine." I nodded at Tank. And Tank, God bless the mountain-sized bastard, grabbed Marsh by the collar, dragged him to a table, and shoved papers in front of him. Transfer papers. Every bike. Every piece. Signed back to me. And then another document. A statement of coercion, manipulation, and fraudulent acquisition. Enough to bury Marsh legally or bury him in a ditch, whichever came first. "Sign," I said. Marsh hesitated. Tank tightened his grip. He signed. Every last page. When he finished, I pocketed the documents. "You're done here," I said. "Stay out of my family's life. Stay out of my county. And if I ever hear you're messing with anyone else, anyone desperate, anyone vulnerable, I'll ride back and finish what you started." His eyes shook. "You think you've won?" "No," I said. "I know I've settled the score." Tank let him drop. Marsh scrambled into the darkness and disappeared. The serpents cheered. But for me, the victory felt quiet. Painful. Necessary. Heavy. We loaded the bikes onto trailers, securing each one with care. My hands shook when I touched them, not from fear, but from the flood of memories crashing through my armor. By the time we rode out, the sky was turning gray, dawn creeping in with soft fingers like it wanted to heal something. Back home, Rachel waited on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes swollen from crying. I stopped in front of her. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. I handed her the restored will and Linda's confession. Her face crumpled. Dad, I'm so sorry. I put a hand on her shoulder. You didn't fail me. You were lied to. She sobbed into my chest, and for the first time in years, I let someone close enough to hear my heartbeat. When the tears slowed, I led her to the garage, to the final bike, a gunmetal gray Harley Softail with custom bars, hand-painted by her mother before the sickness took her strength. She wanted you to have this one, I said softly. Rachel ran her fingers along the tank, breath trembling. Mom? Made this? Yeah, I said. She made it for the day you'd be strong enough to ride your own path. Rachel looked at me, eyes shining. Will you teach me? I nodded. Whenever you're ready. That night, after she fell asleep, I took one of my Harleys out for a ride, the one rebuilt after the crash that should have killed me. The engine rumbled like an old friend waking up. The road stretched before me, endless, dark, inviting. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel hollow. I didn't feel lost. I felt whole. Revenge doesn't heal a man. It doesn't cleanse him. It doesn't lift the weight from his soul. But it does balance the scales, and sometimes that's the best you can hope for. I rode into the night, the wind tearing at my cut, the world unfolding like a long overdue freedom. This was the last ride of the dead, every ghost behind me, every wound stitched closed by steel and resolve. Tomorrow would bring new roads, but tonight, the darkness finally felt like mine again.